Hi, Rob Anderson, CEO of Musculoskeletal Australia. I'm talking to you today on the land of the Wurundjeri people, and I want to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'd like to also acknowledge the significance of this particular place. Just behind me here, we've got the grave site of William Barrack, who was an elder and leader and protector of his people. This was a site of the Corunduk station, which was occupied from 63, that is 1863 to 1924. It was a highly profitable enterprise. In fact, it won Melbourne International Exhibition Award for the quality of produce, wheat and hops. This was, I guess, a place in which the culture was retained, and in terms of continuing culture, it's fantastic to see that we've just 200 metres up the road there got the Wailwan Secondary College for First Nations people, continuing to ensure that the culture is protected. We feel very lucky that Reconciliation Australia has approved our reconciliation plan, and so here and now we start our journey to reconciliation.
Hi, my name's Angela Brown. I'm a Wailwan Ngemba woman, and I'm here to talk today about reconciliation. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians on the land on which I'm meeting today, who are the Ngunnawal people. I'm actually a Wailwan Ngemba woman from Western New South Wales. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I guess being brave and making change is something that we all can do. It's sometimes hard to do, but being brave is a first step in trying to come together with reconciliation, which also means coming together. In Australia, reconciliation refers to bringing together Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and non-Indigenous Australians. Reconciliation has elements of truth, justice, forgiveness, healing, reparation and respect. Supporting reconciliation means working to overcome the division or the gap and inequality between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and non-Indigenous Australians. To understand why reconciliation is such a key part of healing Australia, we must understand the past before we begin. When Australia was first colonised in 1788, many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples were dispossessed of ancestral lands, which to Aboriginal people are the lungs, and they're our breath by which we exist. We are taught from a very young age about the land, its creatures, and the waterways, and how to care for and protect them. Our relationship to land as custodians is an integral part of our culture, and when we are taken from our countries, it disconnected us from our very being. Our history, our stories and our songlines, which give us our law and our culture. My grandmother was one of those taken along with her siblings and put into a mission home where she was taught to be a servant, pretty much a slave. They were hired out to local landowners to care for the wives and children of the local stations. She was never allowed to practice her culture, speak her language or be a Wailwan Ngemba woman again. This meant disconnection, not only from her country and culture, but from her family, as she was forbidden to mix with them again under fear of being jailed. These past policies of assimilation caused trauma, not just in that generation, but all the generations to come. I've seen the impacts in my family, and many still carry that trauma. It's difficult to understand and overcome the trauma that has integrated itself in families. It takes brave people to break that cycle, just as it takes brave people to work towards true reconciliation. By recognising that the intergenerational trauma is real and still exists and will exist for generations to come is a first step in reconciliation. The second step is truth-telling. Truth-telling means recognising the impact past policies have had on us and the impacts of colonisation, such as massacres, the frontier wars, destruction of sacred sites, dispossession of our spiritual lands, stolen generation, the impacts of which are still happening today, and working towards not repeating this continually. Reconciliation occurs one person at a time, but we need strong leadership to support reconciliation too. We need leaders who are brave enough to start the reconciliation process and truly be committed to it, not just on the day when the cameras are there for the speech, but as an ongoing commitment. We need reconciliation to help rebuild our broken relationships, to improve the lives of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples where the gap in health, education, employment, justice, and so many aspects of these. They need dedication and commitment to improve the outcomes in those areas. Reconciliation can start with one small action, and if each person made one small commitment to form a relationship that is based on mutual understanding, compassion, and respect, then we'd have a nation that is walking with one purpose. Reconciliation is acknowledging the past policies and history and the relationship with health and social issues that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have today, telling truth in history and building pathways to eliminate racism, recognise the inherently interconnected relationship that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have with land and waters, and recognising that the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples are the traditional custodians of the land that are Australia and the waters surrounding Australia. For me, reconciliation is recognising the impact of past policies have had on my family, learning to understand, forgive, and overcome the intergenerational trauma, ensuring that my children and grandchildren can reconnect to land and waters and heal. Because in healing we survive, something my family has done for the past 234 years since colonisation. Thank you.